Hey, Mike Caruso with the Fisherman magazine. Today, I've got something really special for you. We are out here in the middle grounds, Stratford Shoals, near the lighthouse. And we're jigging, we're trying to drag up some bass and some bluefish. I'm with Charlie Kapp from Captivatior and Stan Hentschel. Stan was from the Rocky Point Fishing Station many years ago and knows this place intimately. Has been fishing it his whole life and guiding people with insider information on how to catch these fish. And today we hope to see some tales, but also tell some tales from Stan. He's got a million stories and he's got great insight into fishing this area and fishing in general. So let's get going. Hopefully we can catch a couple fish and you know, learn from Stan.
So Stan, I'm gonna figure I was probably about 14, 13 the first time I came into your shop.
Yeah, when you first started coming in.
You know,
the times I remember you is when you had that blue convertible and you were coming up.
That was a little later. That was Nancy's car. Yeah, that was after I got married. Yeah. I also remember my daughter being on the school bus coming up Broadway, and she sees my pickup truck at the bait and tackle. She runs right as soon as she got home. Mom, Dad's at the bait and tackle again. She sold me out. But
that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was the young guy coming in your shop. You know, you'd pull up there. There'd be, you know, a half a dozen four-wheel drives, rigged out, surf rods. You know, that's where every, you know, if you were a surf fisherman in this area, that's where you were going.
Well, I remember Chuck and I bringing you out surf fishing one night.
Oh yeah.
And, oh, I'm in. I'm out. Just had a nice hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a few nights with you. Yeah, and we were on the North Shore. We were throwing those what, 7-inch red fins?
5.5.
5.5. Okay.
The old Smoky Joe.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's some fish down there. Yeah. Well, why don't we talk about the Smoky Joe a little? Because you had a good story about that. I'm on.
You're on.
You had a good story about that. How, what the guy with the chicken scratch?
Well, that was Johnny Chronic. I had to, years ago, you used to be able to buy $300 worth of plugs, and they'd make any color that you wanted. Johnny Chronic was a very senior, was a very smart businessman. He made up the chicken scratch pattern, and had $300 worth of these plugs put in his store. Had some of the Sharpies catch a few fish on it, and you saw the chicken scratch sticking out of his mouth. And you know, history. We thought about it in my store. We took the Smoky Joe, which
it was a black plug, right?
No, it was a grayish plug, right, with a dark top. And we started using that, and we sold more Smoky Joes. I could have made a living on the Smoky Joe the next couple of years.
Come on, unhook yourself. Stan, can you hand me those pliers that are in my bag right there?
Where?
Right in that bag behind the pilot seat. Oh, good, I'm off. The other good thing about circle hooks, they unhook themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Stan, it's funny, I have people come up to me that they know we're friends, and they'll ask me, does he have any rods left over in the basement he wants to sell? You know, and
now when I retired, I said I'd never build another custom rod, and I haven't since. Any rods I've, missed another one. Any rods I've been using lately are all store-bought rods.
Yeah, well, what do you think? You built thousands of them, right?
Yes, I started building rods in 1958. The main reason I started building the rods, I was never comfortable. I started out as strictly a surf fisherman, and I was just too short. If I stood on a rock, tried to cast, I'd almost fall off. So I was building them with longer butts and trying to balance them with lead in the butts and everything like that. And people saw my rods on the beach, And I was just a kid then, but I started selling them for the cost that I built them for. After a while, I said, this is ridiculous. I can make some money doing this. And I continued doing it right up until I went into the Army. And then after I got out of the Army, people were searching me down. And then I decided to open up a tackle store.
What year was that?
Oh, dude, when I opened the tackle store, 1975.
Okay.
I got out of the Army in 1968.
Yeah, and that would have put me right there, 15 years old.
Yeah.
You had a long-standing relationship. You said you opened the store in '75 with the Fisherman. You know, they would call you every week for the report
Surf report, yeah.
You know, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the guys you worked with there, Stu or.
Well, we were
Doc
all
Miller.
very friendly together. I remember Doc Muller, Bill Muller, besides being a good friend of mine, he used to call up from the Fisherman every week. One late fall in November, my friend and my work cohort, Billy Crownover, we were going down to Hackerman Landing Beach, you know, catching 100 fish a night. I mean, granted they were small, but it was a lot of fish. So I tell Bill, I said, you don't have to print this, but you know, we're catching 100 fish a night. And he says, Stan, don't lie to me, 100 fish a night? And I said, yeah. He says, you're lying to me. So I said, I tell you what, Sunday night, come down to my store, me, you, Billy, and Charlie too, we'll go out. He came down. Now we're fishing with the old MB 108 3M surf fishing rods. It was a finesse rod. We were using 5.5 inch Rebels, redfins, stuff like that. He comes down with his 11-foot 706 reel on it, 20-pound test, and we went down there, and he couldn't believe it. We each got over 100 fish that night. Like I said, they were not big fish, but 100 fish a night, that's a lot of work. Yeah. And we left, and he stayed there.
You couldn't get enough.
No.
That's great. So Stan, another thing that would be good to talk about is just how, you know, the fishing is so cyclical. You know, talking about you've been fishing since the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. You know, I remember I was primarily getting into striped bass in the 80s, and there just wasn't a lot of fish around. I mean, I remember getting really excited about catching a 16-inch striped bass.
Well, let's put it this way. Back in the late 50s, the early 60s, if you had 35-pound striped bass laying on the beach, and you caught a 7-pound bluefish and put it up next to the striped bass, everybody would be around the bluefish saying, look at that monster. Seriously, we didn't have very many big bluefish hit the shores around here until I'd say 1972, 73, right around there. Then we started seeing missed another one, seeing a lot of big bluefish, but it wasn't uncommon to catch big bass back then. We used to talk in pounds, not inches. You know?
Right.
You know. And then, you know, you got to realize too today with the technology we got, the fish don't have much of a chance. You know, braided line, graphite rods, freaking $500 reel.
Electronics.
They don't have it. They don't have a chance. Electronics, definitely electronics. We used to have to line ourselves up with, you know, things on shore in order to find our fishing spots. Today, my God, you're out here and you're within 10 feet, 5 feet of where.
Yeah, I never used a Loran, but I mean, it basically was like a paper chart plotter, right?
We used that right up into the 80s. We could afford some of these high-tech machines that they have today.
Now talk about, because you touched on it, this the cyclicalness of the fisheries, right? We can go through the different species, let's say bluefish, striped bass, weakfish, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. And Stan, you could.
Well,
Well, I don't want to be talking over you. 'Cause we're gonna do a 3, 2, 1 before we start.
Oh.
We're gonna talk about that, how things have changed. Some went for the better, some for the worse. You know, that kind of thing. So, Charlie, you're gonna lead it off. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
So you're talking about the 80s. I guess it was early, must have been 1980. For it was 2 years we had those weakfish runs.
Yeah, that was the late 70s, early 80s. We used to come out here and fish off of Buoy 11 with my friend Tom Brady's boat. And it was just incredible, the size of them. We used to go into Peconic Bay when I was a kid. And, you know, if you were catching weakfish 12, 14 inches. Here, we were catching up to 10, 12 pounds, you know. And it was really an exciting show because we'd be out there drifting, catching weakfish, and you'd have a sailboat come by and tack right in front of us, you know, going to North Port of Huntington. Yeah, the fishing back then was excellent, and it seemed that they took over when the striped bass fishing went down.
Right.
The last big striped bass season I can remember back in those days was 1981. And then after that, it was pretty tough to catch striped bass. Yeah, a lot of small fish you could get if you were willing to go out and work all night for it, which we did, because we were more interested in the sportsman aspect of it than even putting the fish on the table or anything like that. Then they had a total moratorium. It went to 36 inches, and then they stopped it. You know, you were able to catch them, but you couldn't keep them. I don't know how many times over my lifetime they brought the striped bass fishing back up, and then what have we done? We've killed them all again, you know. But in the past couple of years, I think the fishing's really come a long way. I mean, we got fish all over the place. How many times have we been out and just slaughtered the fish, you know?
Yeah, and I don't really target the big fish anymore because I'm just more concerned about the release. But, you know, there's guys catching 50, 55 pound bass out here, you know, using live bait and and it's not that hard, like you said. You know, it was even 10 years ago, you know, you're getting a 40 pound fish was a big fish on the North Shore. So.
What's funny though is you notice there's a big change in the blue fishing now. I don't think we have half the numbers of the bluefish that we used to get out here.
Yeah, last year was very quiet. This year we're seeing some, but I want to get back to those weakfish because you were saying about off Buoy 11, but at that time we were still allowed to take the buggies on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And we were killing those fish off the beach.
That's what killed the driving on the North Shore.
Was that,
we had
weakfish
everybody
run
coming over from the South Shore during beach hours and everything else. See, we used to go, and we'd be off the beach by, 7 o'clock in the morning, you know.
All of a sudden we had 20, 30 trucks on the beach from all over.
Yeah, from Cedar Beach all the way down around the point.
And everybody was catching fish. Those weakfish were unbelievable. We were using those, what was it, the spoon jigs?
Spoon jigs, yeah.
What, 3/4 ounce?
1 ounce, 1 ounce spoon jig.
With a white tail or a yellow green tail, right?
No wrong. I can remember fishing Crane's Neck one night where there was a house right on the beach, and in front of that house there's a big rock. It's not up by all the rocks, the point itself. It's about halfway down to the parking lot, and you had this one big rock, and if you fished to the west of that rock, you were catching striped bass. If you go to the east of the rock, you'd get weakfish. And it was like that all night long. How do you explain that?
They had a demarcation line?
Like there was a wall there, and striped bass on one side and weakfish on the other. And I've caught fluke at night, which people say, oh no, you can't do that. I've caught them on lures at night fishing for striped bass. Upper Cranes, Oldfield Point, Hageman Landing. Great fishing areas. You can't get to them anymore. Parking's dead, you know, unless you live.
It's impossible.
Right there, you know?
Yeah, or you have a boat.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. I always got to laugh to myself. So all the years surf casting, right? You're trying to throw it as far as you can off the beach, and then I'm in a boat and I'm trying to drive the boat as close as I can to the beach.
Got it. Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
I always took a couple of casts while I was about 10 feet away from the shoreline, and then I see these guys with lights on and they walk right into the water up to their freaking waist. I wonder how they ever catch a fish.
And how many times in 10 feet of water you got that fish right off the, you know?
Yeah, well, I really learned that down in the Keys. I mean, some of the size of the fish that we caught, tarpon 70, 80 pounds that were in 2 foot of water, you know? Most people today take where we live for granted. I mean, we have some of the best fishing here in Long Island Sound out here in Stratford Shoals. We have beach fishing that's fantastic if you can get to it. We've got oceans, we've got bays, we've got rivers, we've got ponds. It's a fisherman's dream, and most people don't know it. Unfortunately, we don't have any fish here today.
Never leave that part out.
So most of these areas that we fish here, you know, we're fishing, basically it's glacier formed. We're coming up out of 80 feet of water onto shoals that are 25 feet, 35 feet, 40 feet of water. And, you know, it's basically we're coming up and over. Right here, this is a huge shoal. We're in the deeper water right now. Pretty soon we'll be coming up and over on it. And like you mentioned, buoy 11 earlier, buoy 9, 7.
It's just unbelievable.
Buoy 5, you know, you can go on and on. Same thing, you can go to the west, right?
You can go to the east, and there's such a difference between the water temperature right around you figure Horton's Point. East of that is a shelf. It drops right off. You've got a big difference in water temperature. The fishing, the beaches are different. You've got pebbles out there where you got sand here. It's all, like you said, it has to do with the glaciers.
Yeah.
When we first started fishing, when we became teenagers, we used to go down to Larry Watts' boat livery down at the Bluff in Kings Park, and we'd rent wooden boats with small little engines on the back, and we'd have 5 or 6 people in this boat. How it didn't sink, I don't know. And that's how we did our fishing. It was great memories. We caught a lot of fish, had a lot of fun, but it was nothing like today. Nothing at all. You know. Today, with the modern technology we got, like I said before, fish don't have a chance. I say that we have what we call one bluefish so far.
Yeah. And right now, like you said, because of the conservation and the slot limits and everything, there is a lot of fish around.
Oh.
You know, and we're catching them spring right through the summer into the fall, so there isn't even, you know, a letdown. I mean, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I was bringing my boat to Montauk for 3 months because this place was dead.
Yeah.
And now I don't need to do it anymore. It's alive, the whole stretch.
The fishing reports I get, I came out of retirement, went back to work in a fishing tackle place, and I tell you, it's just every day I hear great stories about striped bass fishing. This year, though, seems a lot of people are complaining about fluke. What's happened to the fluke? I don't know.
So getting back on the old time days, trying to get some detail, like you said, I know at one time Long Island had those little fishing stations all over the place, and you'd get a wooden dory with 9.9, and you'd come out here in the south.
Yep.
And this could get to be some big water.
Oh,
Well,
Ralph.
You have any stories like that were kind of harrowing?
I
or?
can remember me and my buddy.
I'm gonna start you off. I'm gonna count it down in 3, 2, 1.
I can remember one night my buddy Chuck and I decided to come out and do some bass fishing at Buoy 9. We put the boat in the water, came out of Mount Sinai, took our little 14-foot wooden craft with, like you said, about a 9 on the back of it, and we go out and we start fishing. And all of a sudden, the wind and the tide took us a little bit beyond. Chuck got into a fish. By the time we got it to the boat, we realized that we were getting out into shipping lanes, and there's freaking ships coming down. So we say, we got to get out of here. So we start the boat up. We had it open, wide open, and we're trying to come in. And we couldn't. The wind, the tide, and everything, trying to fight that, we couldn't do it. So we had to go all the way down on an angle, down to Shoreham Power Plant, and then come back along the beach. We couldn't, you couldn't.
Heavy south wind in the afternoon.
Yeah, and you don't think about those things. You say, I'm out in the boat, and I just straight in. That wind and the tide, this is not a big lake. This is, can get quite nasty out here.
It can change on a dime.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous body of water also, because it can change so fast.
Yeah, and then you got
be out here like
thunderstorms
this,
that come
and you
right
get a storm
down
come
this
through, and you're in 4-footers.
Oh, and
and it happened in 15 minutes.
I've had situations where I'd be in my tackle store, and these people come in the store early in the morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, not knowing the water or anything like that, and asking me where to go, and I'm trying to explain to them, and they didn't know from anything. I had this morning group said, let me get my chart. Now, you can show me on the chart. And I said, fine. He goes out to his car, and he comes back in with a McDonald's placemat from McDonald's that had, and these people are going out in the boat. And it was a lousy morning too. It was, blowing quite a bit. And they had a small boat, 18, 20-foot boat. I often wonder what happened.
So Stan, how many tackle shops did we have in our area, say back in the mid-70s at that time?
Well, just in Rocky Point alone, we had 2. We had mine on Broadway, and we had one right on 25A. Yeah, which we had a third open up, and there was 3 of us right in the town, and we all did well. We all did very well. Then there was a total of 7 tackle stores from Rocky Point down to Crafters Fishing Station and Port Jeff. And we all did well until the town of Brookhaven decided to limit access to the Manhattanites, people from Queens, Nassau, even people from Suffolk County that didn't live in the town of Brookhaven. They started giving us parking spots for night fishing.
Yep.
However, you'd have 3 or 4 parking spots for the whole town at one location. I mean, that's ridiculous. And it wasn't bad when they would give you a parking ticket, but when they started towing the cars and giving you parking tickets, that cost you a little bit too much.
Yeah. It just got harder and harder to get access to the beach.
Yeah, even if you take someone who owns a second home in Rocky Point, for instance, they put through an ordinance that if it's not your primary home, you can't have slip space at the town marinas. Hello, you're paying taxes, and that made a lot of people sell their boats and take up golf. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Which doesn't make sense. They're paying the taxes.
Well, it doesn't make sense at all. the beaches should be free to anybody as long as they abide by the laws. You know, our whole problem was we had an element come out and dirty up our beaches. You know, dirty diapers, beer cans, soda cans. They wouldn't clean up after themselves. And that's why the town had to close the beaches down, to appease the people who lived in the area, you know. And I can't blame them. And when the box stores came along, it was very tough on the small tackle stores. So if you were a businessman, and I had a pretty good education through the Army, they paid for the whole thing. It was a situation where you had to do everything different than the big box stores. We did everything in my store. We poured sinkers, we tied hooks, we tied bucktails, we built rods, we did reel repair, rod repair, and towards the end we even had a service where we'd take the people out fishing using my boat and one of my close friends' boat. It was the only way to survive. And unfortunately, the ones that just sold the bait and the hooks and didn't get involved with a lot of different tackle, high-end stuff, they ended up all closing up. It's a shame, but it is not an easy business. I would not tell my children to go into the fishing tackle business. I have a story for you about my buddy Chuck and I were into some fish, and we're following the tide. And one morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we were one of the access points to the beach here on North Shore was Halleck Landing. So I'm driving my Jeep over the hill to get onto the beach with my headlights on, and as we went over, you saw 2 legs sticking up and this guy going crazy on top of this girl. And they, of course, jumped up and we drove right by them. We smiled, we tipped our hats to them and went down. That was a long time ago.
So Stan, everybody wants to know what your best day fishing was, and I think that was on my boat, right?
We had a good day.
Yeah, we did all right.
I've had a lot of good days fishing. My whole life has been a fish. My first love, of course, is surf fishing. I've always loved surf fishing. I walk on the beach. In fact, the therapy from walking the beaches at night got me through a lot of heavy days where I had PSTD when I got back from overseas. Without that, I don't know what would happen to me. But it just enhanced my love for surf fishing. But I'm not just a surf fisherman. I love fly fishing, pond fishing, river fishing, out here on a boat. It's great. Some of the best times I've had in my life were on the water. As far as the best day fishing, to me, they're all the best day. Even today,
Yeah.
I'm not catching fish.
Yeah, well, right now we're fishing.
Montauk.
We're not catching.
I started fishing Montauk with my uncle and my grandfather in 1958 to go into Johnny's tackle store. Sit around. He used to have an old Potbelly's stove there in the store back in the late 50s, early 60s. And to hear some of the old timers speaking and the pictures on the wall, it was just unbelievable. And then when his son Johnny took it over, I knew him fairly well. He kept the tradition going until his retirement. I've had so many memorable things happened to me on the beach, in the stores, meeting people that are my friends today. Charlie, I mean, I met him when he was a kid, and so many different people. Unfortunately, a lot of my closest friends are no longer with us, but when you're approaching 80 years old and more, you know, you got to expect these things, you know. Well, sitting here, I've been admiring the technology that Mike has on his boat here, but you have to realize when we used to go out fishing, we didn't have that. In order to find places, we had to set up ranges where we might have a certain tree on the shoreline, and when we were out, we had to match that buoy up with the tree and back up what we thought so many feet until we felt the bottom, and we knew we were generally in a close proximity to where we were catching the fish yesterday. Today, nobody does that. I mean, with the technology we have, it's not needed. I don't really know how to explain it to the kids today, but think about it. You know, you go out in the boat and you have a wide expanse of water, and if you don't know spots on the shore and are able to line yourself up with a bathhouse and a pine tree behind it and back up until you're close to the buoy, that's how you used to have to learn how to fish, how to become good at it, you know, catch fish.
Perfect. Hold that. Charlie, you're going to say, well, you know, you can say where you are.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm losing you.
Okay.
Why are you running away from me?
I'm not.
Something I do?
No, I was going to sit next to him, but that's fine.
Mike, you going to poke your head there? Okay. Charlie, ask about, you know, you didn't have depth finders. How'd you find the right depth? How'd you figure that stuff out? Okay, so
Right.
you can ask that question. Just stand. In 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, so also you didn't have a depth finder, you had no GPS. I guess, you know, you would look for a rip line or an eddy or something, but you really had no means of knowing how deep you were. If you were coming up, you could feel the line wasn't dropping as far down, right? But
well, we used to carry felt tip pens. And we used to mark the line, and then we knew how deep the water was.
there you go. So you wanted to talk about a best fishing day. So I spent probably 3 years bringing my boat out to Montauk and leaving it out there for 3 months. And I got to know the area pretty good. So I had a couple of my friends come out, and I'm not a charter captain, but obviously when you bring people fishing, you feel pressure to, you know, you want to have a good day, right? So I brought them up right off Shagwan, because I'd been fishing up there, and every morning it just exploded. I brought them up, we were just beyond Surfcaster range, and they're like, what are we doing? I said, just sit tight. So within about 10 minutes of me getting there, it just blew up 360 degrees around the boat. So they were catching stripers, they were catching false albacore and bluefish. And we fished out with the spinning rods for a good hour, and then it died down. Then I took them into the rips with live eels. You know, we were pounding on 40-pound bass, so that was a pretty good day of fishing. And those two guys still talk about that day, to this day. So in the springtime here is when we get a lot of nice bass come in. You know, early spring, beginning of May, and end of May and the beginning of June. And you know, those times, you know, we can come out here and we can jig 30 fish, you know, in a session, and it's pretty consistent. That's probably the best time as far as striped bass fishing around here. but it does last through the summer. But those early spring, and we tend to get a nice concentration of fish in the 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40-pound fish. Now they're getting even bigger because with the slot, it seems like there's a lot of 50-pound fish around too.
Stan, I was thinking, I've been with the Fisherman now, it's been about 35 years. We definitely have a lot of common people that we've had relationships with. I know for sure that Fred Galafaro and you, and Fred, I worked in the office right next to him, so it was amazing for
Fred,
me. But I mean, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Fred.
Well, I've known Freddie since he's been about his age. When I met him, about 17, I met him through a gentleman named Marty Beers, who was more or less his mentor, I guess you could say. He was a guide on the Great South Bay for weak fish when he was young. I met him on the beach. Real gentleman. Great guy. I talked to him every week for ever, knew most of the owners quite well. Like I was telling you before, one of the first owners back in the 60s was a gentleman named Rick Grauer. That was back in the very early 60s. He and another guy started the Fisherman.
Right.
What can I say? The fishers have been around as long as I've been around, I guess,
Yeah, no, you mentioned earlier, and Fred mentioned this to me. He used to tell this story years ago about actually catching a bluefin tuna from the shore, from the South Shore, on the beach.
Yeah, I remember him calling me, telling me all about it.
That must have blew your mind.
Yeah, it did. But again, like fishing, it was bait. The bait was in close, the fish came in, so many great fishermen.
Guys like Doc Muller, sorry to interrupt, Doc Muller.
I've known him forever,
Not just the North Shore surf guy, he fished all over the place.
He loved fishing. That's the same with me. Everybody assumes I'm just a surf caster, and I fish all over the world. I've actually fished, so.
Well,
Doc would break things down like a professor, like a scientist in a way.
Well, he was. He was
exactly.
marine biologist.
But what a great instructor. He articulated things. Both Fred and Doc, I think, taught. If you think about the masses of people that learned something from both of those guys, and even guys walking into your shop. Well,
like I was telling you before, the young kid who started coming to my store, John Padawan, the guy, one of the greatest fishermen I've ever met. I think it's because he's so innovative. He does things that nobody else does and is so successful at it. But he tries all different things. You get stuck in a mold doing things the same way all the time. As conditions change, you're going to be dead in the water. But he was quite a fisher.
Well, he definitely pioneered that concept of snap jigging. And look at what that's become. There's product, there's rods, and beautiful bucktails that he makes, but that are specifically for that technique.
And he's been doing it for a long, long time. I mean, like I said, he was a teenager when he started coming. We taught him how to catch striped bass on a bunker, and he just took it to the exponential. It's amazing. Following his career.
Well, you spoke much of how things were back in the day, and how
nothing like today.
The analog, almost like the analog period. There wasn't all this. This is a bit of a marvel of technology.
It really is. Really impresses me, this boat.
Well, I'm super, super happy, that. Number one, you were open to sharing some of these things with our audience, and that people continue to learn from you. Even though the shop is, it's a historic shop, and the legacy lives on. But to get you back out here and have a day out on the water, however good the fishing is or not, is truly a privilege. So I thank you, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. And I really have to, thank Charlie, because you and Charlie have had a relationship since you were 15 years old. So to me, that's just amazing that You know, this is fishing, right? Fishing brings people together. It connects us all.
I've met so many great people over the years.
It's the essence of fishing. It's a very, I don't know, it's a community of people who have like-minded interests. We're all trying to understand the ecosystem, and at the end of the day, we're just trying to catch a fish by understanding it, right? But boy, oh boy, thank you again. I really do appreciate it. And have a great rest of the season. Charlie, it is always a pleasure.
Stanley, thanks for coming out and sharing that with us.
Always with you, Charlie, you know that.
Until the next time, it's Mike with the Fisherman Magazine. Tight lines, everybody.